Welcome back to Tutorial Tidbits. I'm Elizabeth St. Hilaire, and this week I'm going to give you a sneak peek into the finishing touches that I like to apply to my floral collages. It's all about florals these days because I am going to be teaching florals on Zoom with the Sedona Arts Center, and I'm also headed to Baltimore, Maryland to teach florals in person for 2 sold-out workshops. So flowers are hot, and this is going to be a sneak peek into my favorite finishing touch for floral collage. So if you've got a few minutes, let's go check it out. Welcome back. So today I'm showing you a little sneak peek, a little tidbit of my Fabulous Florals workshop, which is going to be available online in the end of April in conjunction with the Sedona Arts Center. If you're interested in learning more about Fabulous Florals live online via Zoom, click the link in your upper right-hand corner. So what I've done now at this point is I've collaged some details of florals. I've zoomed in on a small portion of my bouquet and I've collaged the florals. I've got some eucalyptus leaves here, some yellow flowers. I think this could go either way, right? I think it probably goes this way. And this nice big purple floral at the bottom. I've painted in my negative space background color, which is a nice neutral. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do some mark making on top. So I'm going to embellish and make some marks, and I'm not going to outline everything, but I'm just going to add some marks and some color that will add to the collage process before I add some texture in the background with molding paste. So you're getting a 2-for-1 today. So what I'm using are Stabilo Woodies. These are water soluble, and they are kind of a combination between colored pencils and crayons. They're waxy and they're opaque, but they draw with a line like a colored pencil, and they're also blendable with water. So you can leave them as colored pencil sort of crayon-like lines, or you can blend them and turn them into a wash with water, and I'll show you what both of those look like. Now, you can buy these individually, one at a time if you want to try a couple of colors, but when you get a set, you get a sharpener with it, and that's important because the sharpener on its own is like $8, but when you buy a set, you get a sharpener with it, and it's a proprietary sharpener that fits the pencil, and they sharpen just like an eyeliner pencil or a regular pencil. So what I do is I like to just add some fun color on top. So I will come in with yellow and add some lines sort of that extend out beyond the edges of the yellow florals. And I'm just making some quick lines. I'm not outlining, and I'm just adding. I'm just embellishing. And then I've got some like pale orange that I can help divide some of these petals with. And you can see that it doesn't really require any tooth for these to write because we're going right over collage glue. I've got some reddish orange that I'll put in here, sort of coming out from the middle, dividing the petals here, but not trying to resist the temptation to make it a complete outline. Then I've got some nice light blue that I could kind of add some lines on the eucalyptus, circling around them, extending into the background, just sort of adding and embellishing. I can do the same with some of this nice light lime green. And I can even bring some of that blue down into my flower petals. That blue teal always looks nice with orange. And I've got a little purple crayon here that I might put a little at the bottom. And here, keeping it light. Now when I get into this, I've also got a nice deep blue one that I like with the purple here. So I'm going to press down and sort of use these interchangeably to put some lines around some of the small petals, keeping it loose, coming out into the background a little bit to soften the edge. And lining some of the petals on the inside. And then I'm going to take some orange and reinforce some of these little centers and maybe even add a few more, and then I'm gonna just sort of add some pressing down and getting some nice opaque orange that I can add in little bits and pieces in with this purple. Just accenting marks. I could even bring in some of this light blue and do the same. Get a little pops of color around the edges of this and maybe even up into these blossoms. And again, I'm being loose. I'm moving my hand quickly. I'm not outlining. I'm not trying to do anything but just sort of add some embellishing marks. I've got a little piece of paper here that's got some red on it and in here, so I could even bring a little red in there, just a little, in a few places. So now I've embellished that, and I've got, I'm gonna bring in some of this light yellow around the top of these petals. Maybe I'll reinforce some of the yellow centers of the flowers. And I'll put a little bit of light yellow on the buds on the top here. Then I'm gonna bring out, grab a brown one and reinforce this stem on the eucalyptus. And I've got a kind of a pinkish peach one that would draw on these light petals sort of nicely. And that might even add to the yellow flower, or maybe on the light petals in here, this pink. Just on the light ones. And I'll do some small bits around the edges of the top part of this flower. Including at the bottom of this flower. And I'll put a little yellow. So I'm just playing and adding some mark making and some embellishing on top of the collage with the Stabilo Woodies, because they don't require any tooth and they're opaque. And they can also be blended with water. So if we wanted to blend them with water, which I like them just as a line, but let's put a little bit of it around the outside edge here with the purple. And I'll show you how we could maybe blend a little halo. So we'll put the brush in a little water and we'll just touch this and it just turns into paint, which is really kind of cool. And we could just kind of soften that paint and give it even more of a painterly look by softening up some of the lines and giving sort of a painted edge. So that's softening and giving a painted edge, and I could even soften this. And if I wanted to soften some of these lines and sort of turn them into a soft paint. So you can do a mix of crayon line and blended. You could blend all of it, or you could just leave all of it as crayon line. But it certainly blends nicely, turns into a nice sort of opaque paint as you drag it around. And like if I didn't think this purple line was, if I thought that was too much, I could soften it with the water. And at that point, if I didn't like it, I could wipe it up with a paper towel. I kind of like it though, but I might dry my brush and drag it through it and lift up some of that water. So if you put it down and you don't like it, you can wet it and remove it, which is kind of nice to have that option. So that's the Stabilo Woodies, and adding some mark making on top of collage. And then the next step is the icing on the cake, and that's adding some molding paste texture as a final touch. So I forgot to grab my palette knife. I'm using a pointed palette knife for this so that I can use the tip of the palette knife to get down into the small places and the small areas between where I want to add the molding paste. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some molding paste, and this is Golden's molding paste. It's just the straightforward molding paste. They also make light molding paste, hard molding paste, and a molding paste with a texture. That the title of it is escaping me right now. But what you want is just straightforward molding paste is what I'm using in this lesson. So it's gonna come out with a consistency of frosting. And we're gonna scoop some of that out and put it onto this sheet of palette paper that I have prepared. And generally I always put out too much, but you can save it in an airtight container. And I've done a series of these little 8x8 florals, so I'm gonna need a decent amount of molding paste to do all of them. So I'm on my palette sheet of paper, and I am going to add some of the color that I set aside in this cup of the background, the neutral background color. So the first step is to add the neutral background color. Now the molding paste is not opaque, but it's not transparent. So it's somewhere in the middle. When you put it on, it's going to look white and maybe sort of see-through. So mixing the color into it is going to give you, it's not white, the molding paste. So it's not going to make your color lighter. You're going to see that when I mix this up into the molding paste, the color remains vibrant and keeps its shade. So now that I mix it into the molding paste, and you can see it's not any lighter, so it's not as if the molding paste is white, is my point. So you're getting the same color. So what I want to do is not have it the same color. I want it to be lighter. So I'm going to add white, titanium white. And I'm going to make it a little bit of a different color. So I'm adding a little bit of green gold, because this is a greenish gray to begin with. So what I'm trying to get here is a lighter value than what's I've painted in the background. So I want it to be lighter, and I want it to be sort of analogous or on the same side of the color wheel as that. So I'm not going to blue or purple. I'm staying in green, greenish gray. But I'm just making it a little bit greener. Actually, this is a little bit more like yellow. Green gold has got a lot of yellow tint to it. So I'm making it lighter and still in the green family. So that looks pretty good. I think it could still be a little lighter, because I want to have a nice contrast to my background color when I lay this down. So we're going to see both the background painted color and the molding paste is going to be a couple shades lighter. So you want it to be a couple shades lighter, and I added the green gold to just sort of give it a little bit of a yellowy green hue that's slightly different but harmonious to the background. So I think this is pretty good. I've got quite a lot of it here, but like I said, you can put it in a container with a lid, and I've got 6 of these to apply the molding paste to. So even that will probably still have left over. So this looks pretty good. You want to make sure that it's really well mixed, so you have a nice even color. And then I'm going to wipe off the palette knife, so I'm starting fresh. And we're going to be spreading this with a light hand into the background negative space, and we're going to go light, and we're not going to cover all of the dark. So we're just going to sort of lay it in here like frosting, and we're not going to cover all of the dark. And we're not going to worry if we come up over the edge of some of the collaged area. That'll give it a soft edge painterly effect. And we're going to use that pointed tip to get down in the small spaces. And we're not going to cover up all of the base color, so resist the temptation to cover up everything of the neutral color that's behind it, because we want to be able to see both. That's why we mix this lighter, so we can have some contrast. The little spaces are a little harder to see, but we'll get to the bigger area. So I'm just sort of laying this in here, and you should have a wet paper towel just in case you get it on anywhere that you don't want it. It does not dry really super fast, so it's not like, you know, you have to be in a rush to wipe it off. Otherwise, it's going to dry and it'll never come off. It's thick, so it's going to take a little bit to dry. So we want to have, again, we want to have a light hand, and we want to leave some of that underneath color showing. So I'm keeping it light, and the small areas are tricky, but you're going to use the tip of your pointed palette knife to get in all these little small areas. So we're giving it some nice texture. And we're making sure that we're letting some of the dark background color show through. So we're getting a two-tone effect that way. And again, I'm in all the little nitpicky places right now, and it'll be a little easier over here. So I'm going over some of the line work that I extended out beyond the edges and some of the stuff that I blended with water. And this isn't drying fast, so we can always make edits. You can scrape it off or wipe it off or add more, smooth it out. Like I want to take some of the ridge out of that, maybe. I don't know. We love texture, and this is why we're using this. It's applying texture, because otherwise I have this nice smooth painted background. So now I'm going to come in with just a little bit and kind of come buttering around close to the edges. Going over some of that stuff that I blended out with the water, but leaving some of it show and not covering up all of the background. Cleaning it off the edges with the palette knife. Maybe dragging this out a little bit more. But you can see the two-tone effect in that the lower layer is darker, the background neutral color is darker, and we're not covering all of it with the molding paste. So we're going to get sort of a two-tone. Textural effect. A little bit of negative space in here. And we can bring a little bit of it on top of the floral to sort of open up background spaces in there. Little windows into the background that would be openings in the flower. So anywhere where you think you would see through. So then what I like to do is just to take a pencil and we can scrape some marks into the paste. You take a paper towel and keep wiping the molding paste off of the pencil, but you can bring some line work. You can bring the stem back and some outline and scrape some marks and some line work into the molding paste with a pencil. So like out around this edge, if we wanted to sort of give it a texture. And when we scrape through that light molding paste, it's going to reveal that darker paint color underneath. So we're giving some more texture and line work with the pencil while the molding paste is wet. And there's not a lot of room here for me to sign this, but at this point, I generally like to scrape my own signature through the molding paste with the pencil. And I would generally do that. If we call this sideways like this, I could sign it up the side. So I could put my name right in here. And I do need to keep wiping the pencil off. I'm not sure I like how that looks, so I'm going to edit it out. How awesome is that? I just don't have a big enough area to, but that is how I would sign it. So I would take the molding paste, have it spread like this, and I would sign my name right into the molding paste on a bigger application. On something like this, I might have to get tricky. So I'm going to just smooth that out there. And I'm going to continue scraping the outline texture of this flower over here. Wiping off the tip of the pencil. So there you have it. There is a little bit of the Fabulous Florals lesson and techniques. This is a small 8x8 detail. I would be doing this in the Zoom workshop as a full 18x24 bouquet. But there's nothing that says that you can't in the workshop do a few 8x8 small details. The process is the same, and I will be sharing that on Zoom through the Sedona Art Center, April 23rd through 25th, and a second session, April 26th through 28th. So if you're interested in learning more about that, check out the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And lessons like this, in-depth tutorial lessons like this, are available every week on my Patreon page, where I would have showed you how I did the underpainting, how I did the collage application, and how I would seal this with varnish and wire it to be hanged. So full and complete lessons on my Patreon page. Check out the upper right-hand corner for information on my Patreon subscription. And last but not least, subscribe to my blog, and you will get this post in a blog format with links for the supplies, such as the Stabilo Woody set with the sharpener and the proper molding paste and the pointed palette knife tool. So if you subscribe to the blog, you will get this tutorial tidbit in your inbox every week with the supply resources and easy to see and easy to click links. So happy Friday, and thank you for being here.